everyone! Welcome to the continuation of polygonal modeling. In this presentation, you will learn about the subdivision surface. The subdivision surface object uses an algorithm to subdivide and round objects interactively. It subdivides your object by adding additional polygons that round it. It is used to create smooth, high-poly objects while still allowing you to manipulate relatively few points.
Let's take out a parametric cube and make it a child of a subdivision surface, found here. You will see that the cube turns into a sphere. Now, the cube itself actually did not change. Notice that if I deactivate the subdivision surface, you can see that the shape of the cube is the same. If I make the cube editable, you can see the original outline of the cube, even though you also see the subdivision surface affecting it, turning it into a sphere. If we turn on garage shade and lines, the sphere appears to have a lot of new polygons. Again, this is still just one cube with one polygon. What is happening is that the subdivision level of your surface is changing. In this case, it is set to 2. What this means is that every polygon of the cube was split into 4s. One time, that's level 1. And then every single one of those polygons was split into 4 again. That's level 2. So the difference between the subdivision surface subdivision and a regular subdivision is that the subdivision surface actively rounds your object. So for example, if I have an editable cube with no further subdivisions, there is a tool called Subdivision. I just did Control A or Command A to select all of my polygons. I am in polygon mode. I will right click and go to Subdivide. This takes my cube from being level 0 subdivision to being level 1 subdivision. And I can continue doing this level 2, level 3, level 4. Now, the difference again is that if I do that with a subdivision surface using the attributes of it, level 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It is the exact same amount of polygons in both, but this one is not being rounded, whereas this one is. So these attributes that are in the subdivision surface determine how smooth your object will be, meaning how many levels of subdivision in either the viewport or the renderer. The more you have, the more your object is subdivided, but the more polygons you have, the more memory Cinema will use. If you need to increase the smoothness of your object, do it very slightly. 3 is usually fine for most things. Also, try to avoid increasing it in the viewport as to not tax your computer, since the viewport is what you're constantly working in. If you increase it in the renderer, when you send it to Picture Viewer, that's when it will get smoother.
The subdivision surface smooths your object depending on how close or far apart your segments are. The closer your edges are to each other, the sharper the curve will be. The further apart, the smoother it will be. Notice that if I increase my segments, my cube is still rounded, but it has recovered a lot of definition around the edges, so now it just looks like a rounded cube instead of a sphere.
So how do you add edges so that you can manipulate your subdivision surface after your object is already editable? For that, you need your knife tools.
These tools cut an object in order to increase its edges. Before, when we had a parametric object, we could click and get new edges. But now that we have an editable object, we need to create them ourselves. If you right-click on your viewport while your object is editable, you will access a modeling menu. Here you can find your knife tools. The first one is the line cut, shortcut KK. The line cut cuts both polygonal objects and splines in all 3 modes. To use it, click and drag a cut line and create multiple ones by clicking multiple times. The cut line will remain visible and editable until you switch to another tool or press Escape on your keyboard. There are multiple colored dots that appear when you make a cut. These are called control dots, and you can adjust them. Each color means something different. Yellow means a point is not connected to a polygon. Blue are the ones that lie on a polygon's face. Red lie on the edge. Green lie on a vertex that already existed, so no new point is created. And white creates points automatically to connect your cuts. A few attributes to keep in mind. You have visible only, which determines whether you cut through only the polygons you see or through the whole object. Next, we have the loop or path cut, shortcut K plus L. The loop cut is a cut that goes around the entire object in a loop. It is mainly used to finely define subdivision edge loops interactively. Once you create a loop cut, you can interact with its options to do more mathematically correct cuts. To use it, hover over a line you want to cut perpendicular to and click once to make a cut. If you look near the top of the viewport, you will see a bar that lets you manipulate your cuts. Add, subtract. The three lines distribute multiple cuts evenly.
So using these cut tools, you can tell how if you made your object editable before adding the right amount of segments, you can come in here and then do it after the fact. And now you have new polygons to interact with.
A few attributes to note. Offset allows you to select from edge to edge where the loop cut goes. Distance is the distance from the cut to the edge of the object. Number of cuts increases the amount of cuts on the same plane. And then symmetrical cut, when switched on, you can create a cut that is an exact symmetrical copy.
Usually, we are going to stick to using the loop cut because when we want to make cuts, we want to make sure that the cuts are going all the way around to avoid having an end gone. For example, if I wanted to add a cut so that I can make the bottom of this cube be sharper than the top, let's say I was going to make a gumdrop, I want to make sure that I use my loop cut so that when I click, I have that cut all the way around. Otherwise, if I use something different like the line cut, by default this has visible only checked on. If I make one cut, that only added a cut to the front of this cube, which turns this polygon and this polygon into an end-gon and starts to break my geometry. So if you do decide that you prefer the line cut, just make sure that you always finish your loops. However, the loop cut does make this a lot easier.
Lastly, we have the plane cut, shortcut KJ. The plane cut tool cuts along the surface of planes. To use it, click and drag to create your first line, and then alter the move and rotation axis to position your plane cut. This tool is mostly used for architectural modeling, and you will often find yourself not choosing it over the line cut or the loop cut. Using all of these tools, you can add edges to your object in order to alter the sharpness or smoothness of your subdivision surface.
Be aware that your cuts help sharpen your edges. However, all your cuts are doing is adding edges to your geometry. So for example, I just made this hole here using my inset and my extrude. Let's say I wanted this to be a little bit sharper. What I would do here, now that I have this polygon selected, is I would want to add a cut or an edge around it. And a way I can do that is using my inset, click and drag towards the left, and the inset creates that offset, and the closer that I leave them together, the sharper that circle will be. So this is without the inset, and this is with the inset. Do you see how the circle is sharpening? You want to make sure that anytime that you are working with insets and extrudes and the subdivision surface, you are activating and deactivating your generator. Q on my keyboard as the shortcut for this. So for example, let's say I wanted this entire outer loop to be a little sharper. I would select it, UL for my loop selection, click on it once, press I for my inset, deactivate my subdivision surface so that I can see what I am doing. Otherwise, I could very easily be intersecting my own geometry, and I want to try to avoid that. Make a small inset and look at the big difference that that made. I'm just going to do Control C to show you how it would look with the subdivision surface turned on. Make sure that even though here it doesn't look like your geometry is broken, if you turn off your subdivision surface, you can see that it is. So once again, just toggle the subdivision surface on and off as you are working with it.
Now it's time to practice.